podcast, but I used to interview a bunch of realtors who just absolutely crushing it. Podcast is a great way to get access to people. So I would always go interview folks like, Tom Ferry, Jason Pantana, and then top producers in my market. One of my agents said that, Ricardo, this business is really simple. We just tend to overcomplicate it. We can distill it to three things. Meet people, nurture the relationship, close the sale. That's it. Three things. Do three things exceptionally well. Meet people, nurture the relationship, close the sale. It's that nurture the relationship piece that gets really messy, I think, in our businesses. One of the bits of advice that one of my agents gave me was, I view success as the ability to find balance in your work. So for her, it was important to create and find that balance. It was important for her to find that balance earlier in her career and not to take things too seriously or too personally. Because this business is challenging, transactions are challenging. It's easy to get frustrated. The other thing that I would say is, I think if you want to do and excel in your business, my friends joke, Ricardo doesn't have ADHD, he has ADD. I am ruthless about automating, delegating, and deleting. So one of my mentors told me that if you want to leverage and grow and unlock that next level in your career, you just really need to get good at those three things. Automate as much as you can in your business. Delegate as much as you can in your business. I have a virtual assistant. I have a 2-year-old daughter and a 6-month-old son. When I had my daughter, I got a virtual assistant, and I started delegating as much as I could to her. I created SOPs for all the stuff in my business. The hardest part for me to delegate to her was my email inbox. It felt just embarrassing. It felt nerve-wracking. But somebody taught me if you have a problem with delegation, it's because you have trust issues. And I don't like to think of myself as somebody who has trust issues. And then delete the redundant stuff or the mundane stuff in your business. Get better about just creating SOPs in your business so that you can move faster, make decisions faster, and like I said, unlock that next level in your business. I'd love to welcome our next speaker, Tara Limbird. She's going to talk to us about how to gain massive market share in your business. What's amazing about Tara is that she's sold over $1 billion in real estate in sales volume in her career. In the last year, she sold 650 homes and over 5,000 homes in her career. You don't get to that level of success without having good systems, a great balance in your life, et cetera, et cetera. So let's give her a round of applause and welcome her to the stage.
I've never had a mic like this before, so if I bust out in a music video or something, just bear with me, so it's just kind of cool. But anyway, thank you guys. I'm excited to be here today. I don't know how exciting it is to follow Keith. That guy's like a neuroscientist too or something. I mean, it's going to be hard to follow that. I was going to be after lunch today, and then Grant said, hey, can you move it up this morning? And I was like, yes, awesome. And then after Keith, I'm like, oh man, that's some tough shoes to follow. So anyway, thank you guys for allowing me to be here today. We're going to talk about how to gain massive market share in this market that we've got coming up. And we're going to do it by talking about two different ways with our business, how to grow deeper in our business or grow wider. All right, so what we're going to be talking about today, we're going to talk about what is market share, how do we calculate market share. We're going to set some goals around it as well, and then we're going to talk about different ways to increase market share, and then also try to figure out which one's going to be the right step for you guys. So just out of curiosity, who in the room is from Northwest Arkansas? Yes, woo, awesome. Well, I love the fact that we can go to a conference here in our backyard. Usually I'm flying all over the country to go to conferences. In fact, is anybody a big fan of the show The Office? They have the Dundee Awards. Well, since we're Limbird, we have the Birdie Awards. And I got awarded a few years ago the Conference Queen. So that's how much I love going to conferences. So just excited that I could bring my cheering section from our team back in the back. Awesome. So excited to be here. So before I get started, I want to tell you a little bit about myself and our team. But I moved to Northwest Arkansas 22 years ago. can't even believe that that's possible. I didn't think I was even 22 years old yet, but time flies. And I got my real estate license in 2004. Before that, I worked for the mortgage industry. I know we have some mortgage folks here too, so I know what that life is like. But just wanted to do something a little bit different. People kept telling me, hey, you should get into real estate, but I'm gonna date myself a little bit, but I thought back then, I'm like, okay, I don't wanna just be handed a phone book and a desk and go like, hey, good luck, hope it works out for you. But in 2004, I saw a job opening back in the newspaper, when that used to be a thing. You may remember that, when you looked for jobs in the newspaper, and there was an ad for a model home sales agent. And I was like, okay, that's intriguing, maybe I could do that. So I interviewed for the job. Luckily, I pulled one over on or something, and they hired me to do it, and that's how I got into real estate. In 2007, I went to work at RE/MAX. I was by no means a genius, but was anybody in the market in 2004, the real estate market? Right? Well, it was kind of a crazy time of year as well, kind of similar to what we experienced here recently, but a little different. In 2006 and 2007, again, I was no genius, but I was like, oh man, like things just feel different. I don't feel super confident. I didn't have as much going on in sales. And I thought, I need to get out of this little box because the only thing I could do at that time was sell right there in that neighborhood. So I went to work for RE/MAX, did that for a few years, and then my husband, Nick, back in the back, hello Nick. So Nick was like, hey, we just got married about a year before that, and he's like, I have a really awesome idea. How about I quit my 6-figure job and join you as a real estate agent? I'm like, yeah, this is gonna be awesome. Because anybody remember what the market was like in 2010 as well? Yeah, I'm like, this sounds like a great time to quit your job. Yes, awesome, this is gonna be so much fun. Anyway, ended up being a great decision, obviously. Of course, working with your spouse, anybody work with their spouse, that's got its own set of challenges. That's for another class, but anyway. So in 2010, we started a team. We didn't really know what that even meant or what that was supposed to look like, but like, all right, let's just throw it all and see what happens. In 2015, we decided to start our own brokerage. So now our team is still really our brokerage, but we kind of went out on our own. And luckily, thank goodness, fingers crossed, everything went pretty well. We've averaged about 500 to 650 transactions for the last 3 or 4 years, and been fortunate enough to be the number 1 team in this state for about a decade now. So anyway, that's just a little bit about us. And outside of real estate, many of us have a very little life outside of real estate, but what little bit of life I do have, my husband Nick, we've been married for 13 years, and we have 1 daughter, Ellie. She's 11 years old, and tomorrow she has her first cotillion, so that's going to be super exciting. We also have 3 dogs, 2 of them which come to the office. They're kind of our door greeters, our director of happiness, we call our dogs. And of course, being born and raised in Arkansas, I'm sure the accent threw you off. You had probably no idea I was from the South, but yes, I am from Arkansas, so big Hogs fans, love spending time at the lake, and then we love to travel as well. So anyway, just a little bit about me. But let's talk about market share. So we throw that word around a lot, let's gain and grow market share, but what does that truly mean? Well, the Wikipedia definition of market share is the portion of a market controlled by a particular product or company. So what does that really mean? That really means how much of the real estate business do you own? How much is yours? How much is Susie Q Realtor or ABC Real Estate? How much of that market do you own? And so to figure that out, it doesn't matter if you're an individual agent, or if you're on a team or a company, you can still figure out what your market share percentage is. So just figure out how many transactions that you close in a given period of time. Maybe it's you want to look at the last 90 days. Maybe you want to look at the last 12 months. And then take how many transactions closed in your market in that same period of time. Just divide the two. I gave it a little easy example. If you close 200 homes in a market that closed 2,500, you divide those and you'd have an 8% market share. So that's how we compute our market share. So that's the first thing you have to do, figure out where you are in order for you to figure out where to go next, right? Before we could set our goals, you can't set a goal until you know where you're starting. So gaining market share, when we say, oh, let's gain market share, it's really just a fancy way for do more business, right? We all want to do more, we all want to grow, we all want to have more transactions, we all want to make more money, And that's what we talk about when we talk about gaining market share. Now, gaining market share in a booming market does mean doing more business. But in a market where things are retracting, oddly enough, sometimes you can gain market share by just holding your own. Because if there's just a certain limited amount of business to be had, if you maintain your current amount of business, you may actually grow in market share. All right, so let's talk about some goals. If we want to figure out where we want to go in our market share, let's figure out what that magic number is. So the magic number is, I don't know, okay? So I know you come all this way to find out. I don't know what that percentage needs to be for you guys. It's different for everyone. Crazy enough, I only know a handful of people from conferences I go to that have a double-digit market share. You know, I know very few. Maybe you guys, you may know a whole lot more than me, but I only know about a handful that have 10, 15, 20% market share. Our team, in the last 12 years, we've never really had, when you combine our total service area, more than about 3.5% market share. So to me, that doesn't even sound like a lot, you know, but it kind of just depends on where you're at and how much business there is to be had. So in order to gain or to figure out where you want to go, if you have a 3.5% market share, maybe your goal is just to increase it by 1%, you know, to go 4.5%. If you're at 1.5%, maybe your goal is just to double it. And then you can take that percentage and multiply times those total number of transactions to figure out how many transactions do you need to do. You can kind of work the math backwards. Like in that last example, if you're in a market that had 2,500 sales, in my little piddly example, 1% market share would be doing an additional 25 transactions. So you can kind of figure that out where you want to go. Obviously, if that market contracts, again, holding your own, you actually would increase in market share. But the thing to think about too is that bottom number, there's really nothing you can do to control that number. We can't control how many people buy houses, how many people sell houses. Although, how many people have sellers that think we control that? Just make someone buy my house, blah, blah, you know? So, but we can't control that. There's only so much business to be had in a certain given period, so, or given area. That's why a lot of people, there's a lot of expansion teams. We've never gone the expansion route, but I'll talk about that here in a little bit as well. But anyway, change is inevitable, you know, and growth is optional. John Maxwell, big fan of his, but you know, we know it's kind of like that country song. It's an old country song that the only thing that remains the same is that everything changes, everything changes. But anyway, I won't sing anymore to you, I promise. But we know things change, that's inevitable. But you guys just being here and wanting to learn and grow, then that's an option. Growth is a choice. But we know the market's changing. Does anybody follow the broke agent on Instagram? Oh, yeah. I love that. Anyway, but a couple of recent ones they posted and said, you know, a listing agent is getting desperate when they ask for showing feedback 5 minutes after you left the house. So is anybody starting to get those phone calls now, you know? Or, you know, the market has shifted when you start signing in fake names to your open house again. You know, who's guilty, you know? Yeah, I've done it, been there, done that, so. Yeah, so we know the market's changing. We're seeing it. Typically, you don't notice a market has changed until it's already changed. It's past tense. But I think a lot of us are starting. We're feeling it now. You're feeling that market shift. So in order to increase your market share, there's really just one or two things that you can do. You can either grow and go deeper in your current business, or you can grow wider in your business. So we're going to talk extensively about those two things, what that means, and maybe which one's going to be the right path for you. All right, so in order to know if you need to grow deeper or wider in your business, there's 3 main resources that you need to look at. Your time, your money, and your manpower. So how many people here are on a team of some sort? Okay. Anybody individual agents? 2? Yeah, okay, awesome. Because this is really for everybody. So we're really going to dive deep into what does our time look like, our manpower, whether you're the manpower, you are the man, you know, or if you have an assistant or a team, and then your funds as well. All right, so let's first start talking about how to dig deeper in your business. So with digging deeper, what I mean is to how to do more with what you have. And really when you know you need to dig deeper, it's because you have less time. So less time means you're waking up at 6 o'clock in the morning and you're burning all day long, all daylight till 9 o'clock at night. That's the time when you wake up at like 2 o'clock in the morning, you sit up in bed like, oh, was that inspection due yesterday? Like, I mean, you're just going, you can't keep up with anything. That's when you have less time and you don't need to add on different layers and pillars of your business. Less manpower, so if you do have a team and they're at full capacity as well and they're going from one end to the other, then that's a time to, how do I do more with what I have? And then less money. If there is no marketing budget or that marketing budget's tapped out, then you're not going to want to throw money at new pillars, new columns, new layers in your business. So growing wider is the exact opposite. You want to grow wider in your business when you do have more time. It's like, hey, I kind of got things figured out. Things are running along pretty good. I got a couple extra hours in the day that I could be doing something else with my business. Or more manpower. Hey, my team, they're running right along, everything's ticking. I think there's more to be had, more to be done here. Or more money. Hey, I've got a marketing budget of 10%. I've got about 5% of it being used right now. I've got all these extra funds just sitting here, not making me money. What do I need to do to invest these dollars to help grow my business? All right, so let's first talk about that money, those funds and resources. Some of the things that we're going to do in order to determine what our funds look like is determine where our transactions came from. Really diving deep into lead sources, which we'll talk more about. Determining what are your top 3 to 5 lead sources, and then making sure you're getting a maximum return on your investment and that budget that we talked about as well. And then with our manpower, whether it's again yourself or you have an assistant, but do you have a team? Do you have an assistant? Do a time study to determine your manpower. We do this a lot on our team. We do it, our support team does it. We used to have our agents do it. I think every time we bring up the word, everybody like, oh gosh, not this again. A time study basically is every day for a week, you're gonna write down everything you do in 15-minute increments, which sucks, it really does. I actually am like the only weirdo that kind of likes it because it holds me accountable. Because nobody was supposed to write down nothing, like, okay, I did absolutely nothing for those 15 minutes, so you feel like you're really more on top of your game. But that time study kind of helps you determine if you're at capacity or if there's extra time in your day or if you're just not being completely efficient. With your manpower too, we're going to talk about niches in your real estate market and if it's time to add on extra layers or to even expand your service area. And then with manpower and teams, we have a 20-to-1 rule that we'll talk about that can help you evaluate where you are if you have a team and if it's time to add on. And then time, that's that third resource we talked about, really determining what are you worth. So if you look at how many hours you work in a day and what your income is and calculate that, sometimes we could be surprised by the activities that we're bringing on that are diluting our worth, of how much we're getting paid per hour. And so maybe time to add on to that. And again, that time study, that's really everyone should do a time study just to help make sure that you're running very efficient into your business. All right, so let's start first with a deep dive in our lead sources. I would go back to 2021, go to this year, and really do a deep dive into every single closing that you had and determine where that lead came from. That sounds very easy. Nobody drove all the way here to hear that. But I want to tell you about all the mistakes that we've made along the way because where that lead came from, that sounds easy. But there's actually, there's a lot of error around that. So we're going to talk about that. Some of our uh-ohs is where did my closings come from? This is like embarrassing to even talk about, but for years and years, we did not do a very good job. Even though we're closing 500-600 transactions a year, we weren't doing a very good job of determining where did that lead actually come from. And a lot of it was my fault because I used to sit down with our agents at the end of the year and I would print off all their closings and then I would be like, okay, so back February 12th of this year, Susie Harmon, where did that lead come from? And you're like, okay, first of all I'd be like, who is Susie? I don't even remember what Susie. Oh, that house, yeah, And then I'm like trying to make them remember from like 10 months ago where something came from, And even if I'd asked them on the day of closing, how often do we work with someone for 6 months to a year before it actually even closes to know where that came from? And then the other thing is too, is if you're spending a lot of time and effort and money on branding and marketing yourself, what becomes really difficult is like, where did that lead actually, oh no, that's mine. I just bought the shirt yesterday. I thought, did I take the tag off? Because that's my wire. So it wouldn't surprise me. I do that quite often, So that's good. Yeah, so we're good. But on tracking your business, if you're spending a lot of time branding and marketing yourself, sometimes it's hard to figure out where a lead actually came from. I always say it's kind of like a basketball game. Like one lead source should get the point, and the other lead source should get the assist. Because one of my favorite stories is I had a lady I was talking to who wanted to sell her house in Farmington, and I was talking to her on the phone. I was like, hey, just curious, how'd you hear about us? And she's like, oh, okay. Well, I was watching TV and I saw you guys on that commercial with Barbara Corcoran. I'm like, oh, cool, okay. And she goes, but then I was like driving through this neighborhood that I think I want to buy a house, and I saw one of your signs for sale. I'm like, oh, okay. And she goes, and then I was at Walmart, because for those that you don't know, we are in like Walmart's backyard as well, so everything is Walmart. She goes, oh, and then I was in Walmart and I ran into a friend. I was telling her I was thinking about selling my house, and she's like, oh, you should call the Limbird team. I'm like, okay, awesome. And I'm just thinking, what in the crap am I going to put in for what's the real lead source here? I have no idea. And that's what I'm talking about. When we talk about lead sources, it sounds easy, but if you really start digging and peeling back the layers to determine where did that lead actually come from. Another story I remember, Loanne on our team, she's here today, is we had a closing, and Megan, our marketing director, she happened to be in the office, and during that closing, she walked in and she goes, hey, I'm just curious, congrats on your closing. I'm Megan, I'm our marketing director, and I just wanted to ask you, I was curious, where did you guys hear about us? And Loanne popped in, because Loanne knew. She goes, they came to my open house. I know where that came from. And they say, oh yes, you're absolutely right, Loanne. And we heard about the open house from Realtor.com. And so again, it's like, okay, well, which one was it? So the thing is, if you really want to make sure that your money is working for you, you have to really start peeling this back and determining where things come from. One of our tips that we did a few years ago is we started, as we would call and schedule closings, when we were on the phone with Susie is my example all the time, and said, hey Susie, you got a closing coming up on Tuesday. The title coming in and get you at 2 o'clock or 4 o'clock, which would work better for you. Oh, 2, that sounds great. Hey, while I've got you on the phone, our marketing team has kind of put me to a little test, and we're just trying to determine what marketing things that we're doing work for us. So while I've got you on the phone, let me just ask you a couple of questions. And she would say, hey, we do a lot of advertisements on the radio, and just curious if you've ever heard us before on Bobby Bones or Kicks 104 or Hot Mix 101.9. Just because even if they came from Realtor.com or Zillow or whatever, we just wanted to know what was making an impression on them. So we would just spend 60 seconds to 2 minutes asking them questions. Nobody ever got mad, and they didn't care. They wanted to help. They're our current clients, right? So like I said, really dig deep to find out what's making impressions. Even it's like subliminal, subconscious decisions and messages for your clients, so you know really what's working. All right, so let's talk about growing deeper with our leads. If we determine, hey, time is scarce, manpower is scarce, funds are scarce, let's do more with what we have. And truthfully, we all should be doing this. We're all leaving money on the table. So let's say you peel back all the layers, you go, okay, here's my top 3 lead sources. Lead source A, lead source B, and lead source C. Now, find out, are these lead sources that you are paying for? All right, and then once you figure out what they're paying for, making sure you're getting a return on your investment. So many times we're so blind to this, we're like, oh, I closed 20 deals last year from XYZ company, but did you make any money from that? Sometimes you look and see how much money you're spending on the lead source. Even if you're having closings, you may still be coming out in the negative. Back several years ago, we used to try to get a 7 to 10x return on our investment for marketing, but I feel like so many things have changed over the past 12 to 24 months with leads and referral companies that's been a little bit trickier. So now we're shooting more for a 3x return. But make sure you know what your lead sources are and that you're making money from it. And be a squeaky wheel. A lot of times when we pay for these lead sources, we're promised X, Y, and Z, but that doesn't always happen. but no, I maybe once ever, but probably zero, have they ever called and go, hey Tara, you spent this much money last month and we told you we'd give you this many leads and we failed and we came in short. So we'd like to do something to make it up for you. No, that's not happening. But the thing is, if you don't have the manpower to track these things, which was me for a very, very long times, I'm throwing money at stuff and not really sure what was working and making sure we were getting what we were promised. So make sure that you have the time, if you're adding on lead sources, or that you have manpower to track these lead sources to make sure you're getting what you paid for. Be that squeaky wheel. If you're calling them up, you have a good relationship with your rep at these different lead sources, call and be that squeaky wheel. I promise it'll pay off. All right, now let's grow deeper with our leads. So to me, leads come in 3 buckets. We're going to talk first about PCSOI. That's your past clients, that's your sphere of influence. That's your bread and butter. That's the easy stuff. But guess what? The easy stuff is the stuff we want to ignore, right? It's like we're all squirrels. It's like, oh, show me something pretty, diamond, something new, something flashy. But our PCSOI is where our bread and butter is, but we all want to ignore it, you know? Make sure you're touching these people at least 12 times a year. I mean, there's different philosophies, 30, 60, whatever. A lot of us are probably doing 1 to 2 if we're lucky. You know, dig deeper here. It's kind of like a diet. We all know, ultimately, if you eat right and exercise, you lose weight, right? But we don't want that. We all want something easier, something more exciting. Same thing here. We all want to spend money and do all this stuff for all these different leads. Where really, a lot of times where it's at is just paying attention and growing deeper with our past clients in our sphere. Our past clients have already had a relationship with you. Your sphere, these are people that know you, like you, trust you. Why in the heck aren't we calling them and doing more with them and staying in front of them? So part of your marketing budget is not just for new leads. Make sure part of your marketing budget is how do I stay in contact with my past clients? Maybe it's gifts, maybe it's Christmas presents, anniversary presents, birthday presents, client events, whatever it may be. Our next category of leads is what I call that low-hanging fruit. These are typically your highest paid lead sources. These are Realtor.com, these are Zillow, this is radio. Sometimes it's just even your sign calls, because usually those are a little bit easier, quicker to convert. But make sure that you are practicing scripts and role plays. I've been doing this for 22 years, and I promise you, I have not surpassed the need to continue crafting our art of what we do. You know, so much changes. I mean, in the last 60, 90, 120 days, like Grant's, I'm not sure where that time period is, but things have changed. The objections are changing. Interest rates are changing. People are worried. People are scared. Consumer confidence is down. You've got to stay on top of what's going on and make sure that you're staying on top of your scripts and role playing. Again, inspecting what you expect, especially as a team. Again, here's one of those moments that I'm like, oh gosh, I'm embarrassed to share this, but I cannot tell you for how long, because I didn't have the manpower, is to listen to some of our recorded calls with our agents and make sure things were going right. But I'll also tell you why I didn't do that. And sorry guys, notice some of you here, I didn't want to hear what they were saying because I knew it might be bad. And I was like, oh gosh, I just really don't want to be in a bad mood today, so I'm just not going to do that. But sticking your head in the sand isn't going to do yourself any favors, your agents any favors, or your clients any favors. So make sure that you're either listening to these calls or sitting beside them, or that you have a virtual assistant that's going back through and listening to these calls, and then going to trainings. I mean, train. Our team's a big believer in always learning more. There's so many trainings that you could sign up virtually or go to things like this, but make sure you're always putting yourself in a position to do better, basically. And then that last bucket of leads we're going to talk about is our long-term nurtures. These, excuse me, I'm going to drink water real fast. But these are the people that they're going to buy, they're going to sell, just maybe not at this exact second. All right, so this is typically like your Google, social media, Facebook, PPC, all those kind of leads. So again, these are the people, I mean, I get it. We all want the person who calls, hey, I'm in front of this house, I want to see it. You go show it, and they like, perfect, this is everything I wanted. I'm ready to write an offer right now. Like, we love those people, but the money in the business is all in the follow-up. That's also where we lose the most amount of money too, is the follow-up. One of the agents on our team, Janson, he's been with us about 9 years, and probably like 8 years ago, I was following up with him. I'm like, hey, whatever happened to Susie that called and wanted to sell her house? And he's like, who? And that's usually his first name, who? And I'm like, you know, Susie, it was like a couple weeks ago, she called, and goes, oh, yeah. Well, she don't want to do anything until probably like a year. I'm like, okay. And he looks at me, I'm like, you plan on being in real estate in a year from now? He's like, all right, I'll call her again, you know? And so the thing is, we all want those people that are ready to, they're on fire, they're ready to jump right now. But the money is in the follow-up. Because guess what, guys? They're probably not just talking to you, right? They're going to be talking to other agents too. They're online, they're clicking all sorts of crap. People are calling them. So they're hearing from lots of different agents. But a lot of those agents are going to quit calling them. They're going to be what Jason was going to do and just forget all about them because they weren't ready to do anything. But if you're putting them in a CRM and you're actually using it, we're notorious for CRMs and all sorts of systems that we use about this much of it, you know? And the data we put in it isn't even accurate. So we've really worked hard to try to use our systems the way we're supposed to and make sure that information that we're putting in is accurate, because otherwise it's all worthless. And then make sure these people that are on long-term nurtures, that they're on a plan. Even if they want to buy, they said, hey, call me on Tuesday. Well, guess what? You're going to forget. I promise you're going to forget. I can't remember. I can remember I left my phone, my purse. I lose stuff constantly. I'm not going to remember to call this person on Tuesday unless we're in my CRM, unless it's on a plan, unless I have reminders. And then again, training. We just all need more training. Just big believer in that. All right, so now maybe let's grow wider. Okay, we've determined our lead sources. We know our top 3 lead sources. We've got more time. We've got more manpower. We have that capacity. We have the funds. Now let's grow wider. Let's add another layer. Let's add another lead source, whether it be another 1 or 2. But the reason those things are important is there's no sense adding another lead source and throwing money at something if you don't have the time to manage it or the capacity on your team to make sure that that's taken care of. So that's why determining whether to grow deep or grow wide in your business is super important. All right, another way you can grow wider in your business is by adding a niche. Maybe right now you're concentrating on residential, or you're concentrating on just lake properties. Now you have the capacity or the manpower says, hey, you know what? I think I'm going to go after some new construction business. Or I think it's time I'm going to add a property management column, another pillar to my business. Or now you have a team and it's like, we've never really concentrated on FSBOs. We've never concentrated on expires. Now we've grown wider. Now we have that capacity to add on these different layers and to do well at it. So that's another way to grow your business wide, is just to add additional niches. And then your service area. Obviously now if you have enough manpower, maybe you can go into expanding into new markets. Again, for now, we've just chosen not to, because in a market like Northwest Arkansas that's booming, and that we've only had a 3.5% market share, in my opinion, there's so much more business to be had in a market that we're already marketing ourselves, we're already branding ourselves, people know us. Why not just double down and try to do more, and then go into a market where no one knows us at all? And again, that may just depend on your market and your capacity. You know, the nice thing is with COVID, we all learned how much we can do virtually. So now if you have an ops team and you go into a new market, then you could probably use that ops team to help assist your new team in a new market. So that kind of shaves off overhead that we had to be sure to add on to our budget. And then expanding your current market. If you have now the time and capacity and the funds, you can expand your current market. Maybe you're usually like, oh, I'll drive 30 minutes from here. Well, maybe now you'll drive 20 extra minutes. Or maybe you'll add another person to your team that can reach that market. So it's not really a new market, but it's just expanding your current market. Or grow your team again and add on some additional layers. So here's that 20-to-1 rule that I was talking about. If you have a team now, one of the things that we kind of look at is every person on your team ought to be adding 20 transactions. Now, you say, okay, I have a transaction coordinator. She's not licensed. She's not going to sell 20 houses. You're right. No, she's not. But if that person, and that transaction coordinator, is offsetting a lot of the activities that your agents are doing, the agents ought to be able to do more business now. So every person you add on your team ought to add capacity to others on your team so you can expand your business. So example, if it's yourself, you have 2 agents and 2 assistants, so you have 5 people, you ought to be doing 100 transactions per year. So that's that 20-to-1 rule. If you're at 85, then maybe you need to go deeper with the team that you've got because you're not at capacity Or if you're at 120 transactions, it might be time to grow wider. You might need to add additional layers, additional people, maybe even 1 or 2 more people, because you need to grow wide direct capacity. All right, so kind of just an example, if you've got a rainmaker and 2 agents, transaction coordinator, listing coordinator. By growing wider, I mean adding another agent, or maybe adding another support team member. We're growing this way on our organizational chart. So that's growing wider with your team. And then growing deeper with the team means like, how do you do more with what you've got? And how do you help your agents do more with what they have? So maybe it's adding an ISA department. Maybe it's taking one of your agents and helping them hire a showing partner so they could do more with their business. Or if your transaction coordinator is tapped out, maybe it's adding a virtual assistant so they can do more and have maybe more FaceTime with your clients and with your agents. Or a listing coordinator, maybe they're busy doing helping with signs and lock boxes and all that. Maybe it's time to add a runner. So that's how you grow deeper with your business and your team. And growing deep with your team too, it's kind of like talking about earlier, like PCSOI. Sometimes it seems more interesting just to go run out and find all these new lead sources versus concentrating on what you have. And the thing with us too is it's always been important to grow deep with our team for retention purpose as well. So how do we help people on our team do more? There's been this conception with teams for a long time that we've never bought into, is that, hey, I hire brand new people on our team and I want them to be successful, but not too successful, because if they get too successful, then they're just gonna leave. And that's never been the way we've looked at it at all. I want additional opportunities, and I figure everybody what works for us wants additional opportunities as well. So it's how do you create more opportunities on your team so your team has room to grow and expand. So we have like an ecosystem on our team where agents can grow kind of a team within a team. And so one of those things I love is train your team well enough to leave, but treat them well enough to stay. And then with those teams, we call them like little pods. And so we'll help agents that if they want to create leverage, that leverage may be for growth, and like, hey, I want to do more, but I'm at capacity. Or that leverage just may be like, hey, I have a kid, I'd like to see them occasionally, So it's helping them, maybe it's adding a showing partner, maybe it's adding a buyer agent. It's just helping them grow their business and meeting them where they're at, And this is just a picture of our support team. We have, I think, 16 or 17 support team members to support a team of about 29 agents. So we've just been always real heavy on our support team side. I like to position ourselves for growth before we need it. I think that's, in my opinion, easier than growing your business and then every client hates you and everything else because you suck, because you don't have enough time to deal with them. So we always try to be on the front end of growth. And then here's our team of 19. Our left side, that's what we call our chairman's club. So we have different levels on our team that they can achieve, and some of those are our pod leaders. And then we have agents, and then we also have showing partners on our team. So that's just kind of a sneak peek on how that's structured. But basically, Darren Hardy, love him as well, says if you want to have more, you have to become more, and you have to grow into your goals. So everything today is about growth and growing your market share. So I thought that was great. But Darren Hardy also says reading motivational quotes won't make you successful, just saying. So I guess we actually will have to go out and do something as well. But that's all I've got, guys. And so if you have any questions, I'd be happy to entertain those, or that's it. Or you can throw tomatoes at me. Either way, it's cool. So,
Amazing. Anybody have any questions for Tara? I'm sure we're going to have quite a few hands going on. Right here?
Yeah. I'm not going to have you speak anymore.
yeah.
Hey, so I'm Joe Bridgman from Miami. Thank you very much for doing this. So I'm a second-year agent, right? I got to that level where I passed the 40 to 50, both in volume and in units, and trying to get to like your level, right? Like
right.
I was 3 years old when you got into real estate. So.
Oh my God! Don't tell me that. I hate you.
No, not to age you, but just to give you an idea that
That's like I'm gonna tell you not long ago. The waitress like, you remind me of my mom. I'm like, don't ever tell me that. I don't want to hear. So,
But
okay.
no, so I say that because, you know, when I look at you, I look and I go, okay, well, if this is how things were running when I was 3 and you're still here doing this, right, you're probably
Right.
doing something right.
Like a cockroach.
So if you,
Yes, yes. Keep going, it's great. Okay.
So I'm like, you know, my question I want to get down to here, right, is if you were coming back to my position, right, and you're checking off all these things, and you had mentioned, you know, certain things that you were embarrassed of in the beginning that you had to like face.
Right.
What is like that one thing that you say for everybody here that's like that make it or break it? You know, you show up, you're here, you want to keep going, you don't want to get distracted
Sure.
from all those things. What's that one thing that you feel has set you apart from everybody else that's here?
Right. Well, and so you're a one-man show right now, is that right?
One-man show. I have
Okay.
11 people who support me virtually.
Okay, cool.
We just opened another office in Guatemala, so 3 more
Awesome.
people doing our back-end stuff.
Okay, awesome.
All for compliance and whatnot.
Right.
But in terms of sales, showing up, doing like actual, hey, what's going on, opening doors, it's all me.
Gotcha.
Added 2 showing agents the last 6 months and 2 listing agents as well.
Okay,
We have
awesome.
21 active listings in our MLS.
Yeah. No, you're definitely way ahead of where I was at that age. And so I'd say for me is probably like in 2009-ish. So at that point, you're 5 or something. No, I'm just kidding. I've been in the business like 5 years. And I have actually sat down with my broker at RE/MAX and I said, you know, hey, I did however many 50 transactions last year. Next year I want to do 70, this and that. And he said, that's great. He said, but here's the deal. You can only do so much by yourself. And that was kind of like the first light bulb that went off that was like, okay, I can't wear every hat in real estate. Now I was still terrified to do anything before Nick and I decided to start a team is I hired a part-time assistant. And that part-time assistant, she worked like 8 hours a week. I'm like, whatever you do, don't you dare work 8 hours and 15 minutes because I only have a budget for 8 hours. So I was like terrified of that expense. But what I started realizing is that if you hire the right people and they're doing the right things, these people are not expenses. These people are assets to your business. And so you have to decide how to make that investment. And a lot of times that investment is in people. So I think you're doing the right thing there. And I think also just to keep in mind is like, you know, you could definitely do this a lot faster than I did, but I also think sometimes we want that overnight success. You know, you hear sometimes like a country music star and like, oh, well, they came out of nowhere. No, they've been at every little bar in Nashville for the last 15 years, you know? And so just keep in mind too, is like, you know, that growth will happen, but it's, you know, success is a long-term play. And so just keep them, you know, it's just like every day put one foot in front of the other and you'll get there. It just sometimes doesn't happen quite as fast as we wanted to, but
Here for a good time and a long time, right?
that's right, exactly. I like it. Yes,
Hi,
sir.
Rick Janson, Denver, Colorado. Thank you. What is your unique value proposition? And when team members come on, do they use yours or do you create a new one for them?
Yeah, everybody on our team, everybody in our company, we all work together as a team. And you know, we have a guaranteed sale program. We also have an instant offer program. So a lot of our unique selling propositions is just that, you know, is selling it faster for more money, that guaranteed sale and that instant offer. And as far as our agents, yeah, we all try to speak the same language on our team, and you know, everyone. My thing always is, and that's why we have a big support team, is that I always wanted to feel like if I handed off a client to one of my agents, that number one, I wasn't handing them off, I was handing them up to people that could do it better than I could, and that everyone was getting the same experience. So it didn't matter if they were using Kate or they're using John. Everybody got every client got the same experience. So, and that's a lot. Over 50% of our business is past client and sphere, and it's just taken time to get there. But you know, we want them to keep coming back to us. You know, that's the idea, right? So.
Thank you.
I have a 2-part question. One, what is your ratio of listings versus buyers within your organization? And the second part is, are your agents trained to handle one side or the other, or both?
Gotcha. In the years past, we've always, because I got my start in new construction and model home subdivision, so we always kind of geared really heavy on that new construction side. And so for years and years, our ratio is about 55 to 60% listings and the rest buyers. But in the last 12 months, that actually flip-flopped. I think it's just because there were so many buyers and didn't feel like quite as many sellers. And as far as your other question, we've always been where everybody could do both. We had a time period where we brought in a couple agents that were just gonna do one or the other, and for us, it just wasn't super successful. I know a lot of other teams that do it, works great, but for us, it just worked better doing it, where they did a little bit of both. And I find most agents end up gravitating more towards one or the other. You end up liking, so I think whatever you like, you kind of attract more of that, but they do both, so.
Hey,
Yes, sir.
thank you so much. Sekou from the East Coast.
Oh, yeah,
You know,
sweet. Yeah.
I am an expansion agent, or I was,
Mhm.
and I know all of that the strangeness that comes with it. It
Yes.
sounds like you have a great family-sized organization,
sure.
and everyone is getting along. When it doesn't work out, what's your threshold, and how do you handle that?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, like Grant, when he was so nice to introduce me, he said I sold 5,000 homes and I sold $1 billion, and I didn't do crap. You know, I mean, I did a very small part of that. So our team is really who gets all the credit for that. But it's like anything else. I mean, I was telling them the other day, because we're looking we're looking to grow a little bit wider, and we're looking to expand, but only with the right people. For us, culture's always been number one. That comes above sales always. But we don't always get it right. I mean, we put people through the ringer. You know, it just doesn't always work out. Plus, life happens with a lot of people. Sometimes when they started out, they had certain goals. Their life was in a certain spot, and then that changed and that altered. So again, I said the saying goes, we try to meet people where they're at. And what I did for a long time, did it again the wrong way, is I pushed people to where I thought they should be. Because sometimes I see more potential in people than they do in themselves. And some people want that, and some people need that push. But then some people are like, dude, like I said, I have a life, and I want to see my family, and I want to do all these things. And so that's where, over the last 12 to 24 months, we've started trying to help people build like these mini teams so that they can leverage, other people on the team, so they can, the goal would be to have both, grow your business and to have more time. But I think, a lot of times if you don't have the right person on the team, is you just have to have those tough conversations, and we've had to let people go. And the interesting thing always is anytime you let somebody go is that, the other team members are like, yeah, I knew that was gonna happen. They see it way before you ever do, and we're sometimes a little too slow to react to those things, but they usually appreciate the fact too. They wanna be, iron sharpens iron, and they wanna be around like-minded people that push them to do their best. And so I think for the most part, they're appreciative when we boot them out a little bit, so, yeah.
I wanted to go back to your time study.
Mm-hmm.
How often do you recommend to do a time study? Like, are you doing it monthly or?
No, I would say probably at least maybe every 6 months. Or if there's some issue going on in your organization, like that's creating problems, it's like, hey, let's take a step back, let's do a time study, and let's then go and evaluate and see if we need to make some changes. So, yes, ma'am.
I had never heard the 20 to 1,
Oh, yeah.
and so I'm sitting here having an aha moment that no wonder everyone's hair's on fire, just
Right.
because we're way more than that. So how do you, and maybe you have to know, the dynamics of the business, but how do you know what you should add?
Yeah, that's a good question. First of all, I did not make up the 21 rule, so I don't want to take credit for it, but it is a great rule. This would fly. But as far, it's a little bit hard. Like I said, I could almost show you slides of what our teams look like over the years. But, we start off with like 1 support team person and 3 agents. And then we went from 1 support team to 2 support team and like 4 agents. So we've almost always been, as far as ratio support team, almost like 50% to where we are. And it is scary because, like I said, that's a commitment where I was terrified to have somebody work 8 hours, because it was an expense. But if you do it right and make sure they're working on the highest level of priorities to push your organization forward, then you'll see your business grow because it'll be an asset and not an expense. But I'd be happy to visit with you after and see what your team looks like. So,
Make sure you raise your hand if you got a few more questions. We've got time for a few more. I have a question, Tara. So
Yes.
You talk about adding lead sources and agents not using the CRMs. Does anybody else in here have that issue with agents on their team that don't use the CRM? Okay, we have a few honest people, and we have maybe some lazy people, or
yeah, exactly.
as a high performance team, it seems like, sometimes that can be easy to overlook because you're doing a lot of production, right? So you have plenty, you don't sometimes have to pay attention. But how do you guys manage that? How do you manage, whether it's expectations or how do you manage your accountability? Like, what are some things that you do to lead to so much productivity? Do you overlook this? Like, what are some things that you guys practice as far as getting the agents involved, making sure that they're following up?
Well, we suck at that too. So, but we're getting better. It's like I said, it's easy to overlook, especially like there was a long period of time where that our manpower, aka me, because what another thing I did wrong, there was a whole slew of them, but as we're adding support team people, we were adding like transaction coordinators, listing coordinators, all that, but I wasn't adding people that could take things off my plate, because my plate was still full, and then I wasn't adding layers of leadership on our team. So really the only leaders for a long time were myself and Nick, and then maybe, like Janson on our team that's a high producer, because a lot of agents like just looked up to him. And so we didn't add the right levels of leadership, and I was still taking on too much, and so I was, not doing my job very well. I probably should have gotten fired, plenty of times. So I think now it's just now that we have that manpower, we're actually in the middle. We do a thing called, it's an entrepreneurial operating system, and we meet every 90 days, and we talk about what are the big rocks in our organization to move it forward. And one of those things right now is we're kind of rewriting and revamping what that looks like and the accountability, because it's also hard to go back to agents that have been on our team 3, 4, or 5 years and all of a sudden go, you've got to do this and you've got to do that. So like, what the F, because they haven't had to do that before. And so now though, as we're rewriting that, it's like, hey, if you're at a certain level and you're doing great, I'm not gonna put my thumb down on you. You're doing well, you're producing, your clients like you represent the brand well, but there's also a layer of responsibility. If you're gonna take leads from the team, there's gotta be a little bit of accountability that you're doing the trainings, you're doing the right scripts, role playing, and or else, it's like you're basically earned your way back to that micromanaging piece. And we don't want to do that for our agents that are producing, but the ones that are not, it's like, hey, it's a give and take. If I'm going to give you opportunities, you have to be willing to do X, Y, and Z to earn and keep those opportunities.
Awesome. I love everything you're talking about, especially because you're talking about what we learned when we made mistakes. I don't know if you've heard that quote, the valleys can teach you a little bit more than the mountaintops. It's easy to make mistakes when you're really successful because you tend to overlook these things. But just a round of applause if you can for Tara. Teach us what she learned in her failures.